Hey everyone, welcome to Talks of Thailand. My name is Jon. Today's story is about a man who seems to deep down have realised what he was doing was wrong. He was warned, he was given advice, but he chose to do it anyway and ignore all the warnings. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, give the video a like, and let's get in to today's story. I've been through hell on earth over the past few years, and even though I was warned, I didn't listen. I thought I knew better than everyone else. I thought I knew what I was doing, but it turns out I didn't. I was just like every other guy who got stung by a girl from Thailand. I've heard it time and time again. If you're meeting a Thai girl, don't meet a Thai girl in a bar. I knew that. Don't meet a Thai girl in a massage shop. I knew that too. Don't meet a Thai girl on a dating site, unless you're very cautious. I knew that too. But I wasn't even in Thailand when I met a Thai girl. The thing was, I'd also heard that you shouldn't meet a Thai girl who's working in your home country, because there's a chance that she might be influenced by all the other people around her, and there's a big chance that that influence will not be positive. I wasn't completely oblivious to Thailand and the way things worked over there, because for a start, I'd been there on holiday more than once. I think at that moment in time, I'd been there 3 times, and while I loved the way of life there and how things operated and the girls and the freedom, I hated the fact that it was so hot and humid and I could never get used to that type of heat. For me, I always felt like it was the way too hot. I prefer the cold. I prefer when there is drizzle in the air, and perhaps I'm one of the unique Thailand guys who actually prefers where he's from to Thailand. I love where I'm from, but I don't necessarily love the way that relationships work where I'm from. Relationships are what have tripped me up in the past. When I was going to Thailand, I only went for 2 weeks at a time. This wasn't me going for an awful long time or actually going to live there, but I loved everything about the girls there and how they appeared to be more feminine. They appeared to be more inclined to be the sort of partner I would want. But it's very important to say that I never went to Thailand with the idea of meeting a girl for a serious relationship. I was into the idea of Thailand though. I had a few friends who went to Thailand, 2 of them who got married in Thailand, and 1 of them brought his wife home with him. It was through these friends that I heard everything about everything when it came to the things that you should and should not do. And one of the biggest things that you should most definitely not do, according to my friend who had brought his Thai wife back to the UK with him, was don't let your Thai wife mix with lots of other Thai people, especially ones who are married to English people, as this is where the bad influence comes from. He also talked about how he had heard stories of guys meeting Thai girls who got to the UK and had issues with their English husbands, and how another guy came along thinking he was there to save the day, not realising he was just the next Mark. Thai girls have things open to them in England that they don't have in Thailand, such as the casinos and the ability to gamble, and also Thai girls who are in the UK may have already been over-influenced by the West, because if she had been, then that's going to defeat the object of what you're looking for in the first place. What I'm trying to say is that I'd heard it all, but hearing it all did not save me. I need to repeat that. I really have been through hell, and I want to start at how it all commenced for me, because usually that's the place to start, isn't it? And for me, it was going to a new Thai restaurant that had opened up down the road from me after I returned back from my last trip to Thailand halfway through 2018. I was feeling like I was really missing Thai food. I was missing hearing the language, although I didn't understand 99.9% of it. But when you hear it spoken, it immediately brings back all the amazing memories of all the amazing times you've had. When I first went to that restaurant, I loved being able to use my pidgin Thai to be able to order the dishes I liked, and I would always say spicy like Thai. And because they were Thai people working there, they usually did make it differently if you asked it to be cooked the Thai way. And after that first meal, I started going into this place very regularly. All of the people that worked in that restaurant were Thai. They were all women, by the way, most of them married to local guys, and my friend, who is still married to his Thai wife to this day, he's got a successful marriage, things are going perfectly for him, they're living in England, he's never had any issues, or at least he's told me he's never had any issues. You can never really be sure what's the truth or not when it comes to situations like that. You never really know. But he said he would never in a million years let his wife go and work in a Thai restaurant. He would never let his wife go out and mix with Thai girls in that kind of environment because of all the negative things that can happen. And to start with, I thought he was being controlling, but I guess I understand now. Time goes on, and I'm starting to be on first-name terms with the people who work at the restaurant, and then this new girl started working there. I was probably going at least 2 times a week, yet when she started working, I started going even more, as I felt something for her that I couldn't quite explain. Before long, I found out that this girl had recently been divorced from her English husband. She was 26 years old, her ex-husband was 58, which was the same age as me, and according to her and the other Thai people in the restaurant, he got abusive and demanding and controlling and never gave her any freedom. I'd heard it all before from friends and acquaintances. I heard about other guys falling for things like that. It's a cruel thing, but to me, she just seemed really attractive. She really seemed like the sort of girl who you would actually want to meet in Thailand, who hadn't yet been too over-influenced by the West. But then again, if she'd left her husband, who really knows what her agenda was? Despite everything, I believed what she told me. I believed her side of the story. At the time, I didn't question anything or think who knows if what she is saying is true or not. I never even considered for 1 second that her ex-husband may have been a decent guy, and she was the nightmare who wanted to get to England, and as soon as she got there and found out he didn't have as much as she hoped, she changed her mind and began looking for a better option who would be able to be what was best for her and her family. I just listened to everything she said and believed it all. I saw her as being the most beautiful individual I'd ever met, and being the kind of guy I was, who always wanted to be nice and friendly and kind towards people, I took a shine to her straight away. I think it was a couple of months after I'd seen her for the first time. I was always friendly with her and we talked a lot. I always went to eat really late. So when they closed, the Thai people who worked there got together and had a few drinks, and it really felt like you were actually in Thailand. I suppose I really liked that because I was looking forward to my next holiday in Thailand, which was a couple of months away, and I started drinking with them. There were 6 girls working there. I thought they were all really nice people. Some of them were married, some of them no longer together with their English husbands. The more this went on, she somehow took a step back from them and started talking to me more, and we started talking about our lives, what she was like in Thailand, where she met her husband, and she didn't say she met her husband in a bar. I would have liked her to have told the truth, but she didn't tell me that. She didn't say it, and I believed her. But she did say that she met her ex-husband in the hotel that she worked at. She said she used to be a receptionist, and I didn't think that was too unbelievable. She was working as a receptionist at a hotel in Pattaya, and her ex-husband met her when he was there on holiday, and they started a long-distance relationship which went on for a few years, and eventually he got the visa for her to go to England. She said it wasn't long after arriving in England when everything started to fall apart. Apparently, according to her, he changed considerably when she was with him in the UK, and that's what caused this big mess that she was now in. I thought that I had met a hotel receptionist, and she was in the UK on a spouse visa. She had time left on that visa, but I'm not sure what the situation would have been if it came to her having to renew her visa without her ex-husband. So perhaps she was in need of another sponsor, or perhaps she genuinely liked me. I thought with all my being that she really did genuinely like me, because I really did genuinely like her. Maybe that was the problem. I was completely smitten. It was a few evenings a week at this point that I was going there and having a drink with them and feeling like I was actually in Thailand. And one night, I asked her how she'd feel about going somewhere else. Let's go on a real date somewhere. And I just couldn't even for a second stop and think carefully about what I was doing. If you met a girl in a bar in Thailand, well, you know exactly what's going to happen as soon as you leave the place. The same can be said for a massage parlour or anywhere similar. But when you meet a girl in a normal place in England, who's half your age, perhaps it should have been a red flag that she went straight back to my place that first night and didn't think anything about it. But I thought to myself, she was a hotel receptionist. I even thought perhaps she was lonely, and perhaps she really did like me. and I thought she did, and I really liked her. It was a really fun and exciting period of my life getting to know her, spending more and more time with her, and I found out not long later that she was actually living with some of the Thai people from the restaurant, and she was staying with them, only temporarily, saying she was just trying to save up some money so she could go back to Thailand. That's what she said originally, and she had a certain amount of time left on her visa for that to be a possibility, and she could make more money in the UK before going back. But before long, it wasn't all that long, but I guess it wasn't a short amount of time either, probably about 6 months. I find that I'm inseparable from her. I feel like I've actually fallen in love with her, and I asked her if she'd like to go to Thailand with me on my next holiday. Let's go and look at the country together. Let's go and see what it's like for the two of us to be there together. When I asked her about that, that was when I found out that she wasn't actually divorced yet, and that was going to be something she'd have to work out later. I hadn't seen her ex-husband, or I didn't even know who he was. I'd never met him, and she said it would be easy to get divorced in Thailand, and she kept talking about that, but I didn't know how it worked, and I suppose I didn't really know to this day what was actually going on. But she did say that she'd love to go to Thailand with me, and when she said that, I couldn't believe how great it made me feel. Arriving in Thailand with her was amazing. This was my 4th time there. I believe it was at the start of 2019, and this time I was going to be there for a whole month. I still hadn't finished working yet. I always planned to retire at 65, and I never planned to live in Thailand. That was something that wasn't on the cards for me, but I had a month with her in Thailand just to go and kind of get to know each other a lot better, get to know where she came from. At this point, I felt like we were really getting to know each other well, and she got to know where I was from, and this trip was for me to understand about her, and would increase the chances of actually seeing if what we had was going to be serious and long-term. I wasn't going to be able to go and visit her family, with her still being married to her ex-husband, but she was only going to be there for a week, and I could stay in the local town, and she could come and visit me every now and then when she could. I would say that during our time there, I went from feeling like I loved her to feeling like I loved her more than I'd ever loved anyone in my life during the time that we were in Thailand. To start with, we spent a bit of time in Bangkok, which was great. Then we went to the beach, we went to Pattaya, because that's where I always wanted to go when I went there on holiday. And then the 3rd week, we went to her village, which was in Udon Thani. But, as I said, I stayed in the city, and she just came to see me as and when she could. And it was really enjoyable, and the most fun I'd had in such a long time. At this point, I'm definitely falling for her more and more, and the thing is, she seems to be falling for me too. And I told her that given the fact that we both seemed to be in love with each other, we needed to consider getting back in touch with her ex-husband to see if he's going to be prepared to get divorced from her and make sure he will play ball. I should have looked at the fact that she was so hesitant and so concerned about the thought of me speaking to her ex-husband, or even seeing her ex-husband. Again, I should have seen that as a big red flag. But I saw it as her being scared of him, not about him perhaps telling me things that she wouldn't want me to know. This is how it went on, but I kept saying to her, if you want to stay with me, I'm not going to stay with you forever if you're still married, and again, although she had her spouse visa, which had validity on it, I'm not going to stay with you if you're still married. She said she understood, and she said when we get back to England, she'd tried to sort everything out, and I just had to leave it at that. I had the time of my life with her, and after we left Udon, we went to Koh Samui, which was my first time on the island, and it was an incredibly idyllic place, a really beautiful island. And that's when I first started to have the feeling that this could be somewhere that I could actually see myself living. I'd never thought about living in Thailand before. Again, for me, it was way too hot. I didn't like the stickiness. I didn't like the humidity. But with her there, given that what I'd been working my whole life, the thought of what we could have together, that was the first thoughts of this, and it started to feel exciting. It started to make me feel like this is something that we should do, because we could do it right now. There was, however, a little incident that happened on our 2nd day on Koh Samui that I look back on now and recognise as a really big red flag, but I didn't understand it at the time. After we left Udon, we went on the bus to Bangkok and then flew on Bangkok Airways to Koh Samui, and there was nothing in particular out of the ordinary about the journey. We got there and checked into a really nice resort, and I had given her a decent chunk of spending money for her time in Thailand. I believe I gave her just over £1,000 for the whole trip, which I didn't think was any kind of problem. However, on the second evening on Koh Samui, we were going to go out for a drink and something to eat, like we did every day. But this time, she said she was going to see a few friends for a couple of hours first, and then we could meet up later at the place where we were going to eat. That sounded fine to me. I could go for a few drinks first too, and then I'd see her at the restaurant later. I had a bit of a walk around, starting to actually envisage what it would be like to live there, and I was really warming to the idea as the days went by, that this was something that I was actually in a position to do immediately. I arrived at the restaurant a bit early, and she was already there. It was a decent place. They had a long bar with seats there, and I saw her sitting on one of them close to the bar, and I went over and said hi. Now, she didn't appear alarmed or startled that I was there. She didn't appear upset that I was early. She just said hi like she always did, and I asked her if she was ready to find a table and order some food. She said, though, she's just going to have to say goodbye to her friend first, and then yes, she's ready, but I couldn't see her friend. I was just about to ask where her friend was, and then a guy of about her age appeared. He must have been in the bathroom, and now he did appear to be startled. She quickly spoke in Thai to him, and then he stuck out his hand to shake mine. He didn't understand one word of English, but I did shake his hand, and they said something to each other in Thai, and then he left, and we went and got on with our meal. I didn't think anything of it at the time, but it was a few days later when something hit me, kind of like an uneasy feeling I couldn't explain. But that feeling felt worse when I thought back to that little meeting with her friend, kind of like I somehow recognised him, but I couldn't for the life of me work out from where. It stayed with me through the rest of the trip, but I didn't let it spoil the rest of our time there, and we both seemed to be committed by the end of the holiday to the idea of moving permanently to Thailand. I think we both actually felt quite upset when we returned to the UK, because to start with, I had to go back to work and she had to go back to work at the Thai restaurant. On the other hand, it was quite good to return, as before we went to Thailand we weren't even living together, but we did decide that that would be the best thing for us to do as soon as we returned to the UK. She could stop living with her friends, and she could start living with me full time, and that made the whole situation even more exciting and even more real, and I felt like what we had was going to last forever. It felt nothing like any of the other relationships I had in the past. This one felt more loving and caring, and it felt like there was more affection, but perhaps that was her idea all along. The thing that I was mostly concerned about when we started living together was her getting divorced from her ex-husband. I wanted to make sure that we could get married and that we could begin our lives together properly, but I will admit to still having that thought in the back of my mind from back on Koh Samui, that slight feeling of discomfort, but not being able to place it and not being able to point at anything to think about what it actually meant. I did kind of ignore it and I got on with my life together with her. I'd say she'd been living with me for about a month, and by then she'd already been in contact with her ex-husband. And I suppose I shouldn't be calling him her ex-husband, because at the time he was still technically her husband, but I prefer to call him her ex because they were no longer together. But the fact that she'd been in touch with him, and apparently she said that he'd agreed to get divorced, that made me feel a lot better. But the biggest thing was he'd actually gone to Thailand to retire full time, so that would mean that she would need to go to Thailand to get divorced from him there. To be honest, I thought that was great. The thought of her finally getting divorced from him once and for all, the fact that he wasn't going to cause any problems for us, and the thought of finally being able to get married to her myself excited me, as I didn't want to be with someone forever who was still married to someone else, and yes, if she could go to Thailand and get all that side of things sorted out, then it would be perfect. I can remember being really happy at the thought of getting this thing out of the way. We decided that we would leave it about 6 months until she went to Thailand, and I still to this day never spoke to her ex-husband, still didn't know anything about him or who he was, but he had retired to Thailand. I'm not even sure why she separated from him or what the problem was or anything. I will never really know, but if this was going to happen, I wanted to get married to her as soon as I could to make the whole thing feel even more real and better. We decided, as we were approaching the end of 2019, that she could go to Thailand, get divorced, and I would sell up everything at home and go and get married to her in Thailand as soon as possible. We knew that we might be apart for a couple of months, but I just had to tell myself that it's not going to be the end of the world. It's just something that we're going to have to go through to get to the point when we can live together properly as a married couple in Thailand. As I'm thinking about this now, I honestly can't believe that she'd, for a start, managed to convince me that living in Thailand was a good idea. She'd managed to convince me that selling all my stuff was a good idea. And she'd also managed to convince me that putting all my money into this relationship with her was also a good idea. But the thing was, she had managed to convince me that it was, and I was happy with my life at the time. I felt like there was nothing that could have made anything any better. Those 6 months that we spent together in England before she left for Thailand to get divorced, I would say were the highlight months of my life, and I really mean the highlights. We were in love, we were happy, we were content with each other, and there was nothing that I could think about that gave me anything to worry about or any cause for concern. It was just a really great time that we had. She'd stopped working at the Thai restaurant as soon as we got back to the UK, well, after the first few weeks. I'd stopped working not long after that, and I actually held out hope that I would be able to sell my house quick enough and get rid of all my stuff quick enough that we could actually go together to Thailand at the end of 2019 together, and we wouldn't need to be apart. But given how slow things are in the UK and how long everything takes, unfortunately, that wasn't going to be possible. And I believe it was around October 2019 when she flew to Thailand to get divorced, and as of then, I still hadn't got an offer on the house. I just thought, though, it was only going to be a few months to wait. I couldn't go to Thailand without the money from the house because most of everything I had was in the house, so I didn't want to commit to anything that may cause problems for me later down the line. It was very hard, though, when she went to Thailand without me. Since we returned from our time there, we hadn't spent even a single minute apart from each other, given the fact that we'd both quit our jobs. And I must say I had, or when the house was sold, I would have had about £250,000, and it was our plan to live on Koh Samui. That's what the idea was all along. I never planned to buy anywhere or build anything, just rent a small place, close to the beach, and have a good time. I had a bit of income coming in as well from a pension that I had, although it wasn't a fortune, so all in all, we thought it wasn't going to be a bad existence at all. I didn't believe I was going to be there with not enough money, like some guys do. I didn't believe that I was doing anything out of the ordinary. I just wanted to live a normal life and have a normal relationship, where people come from different places. But that unfortunately means, before things are fully set up, you are going to have to spend a little bit of time apart. And that was something that I accepted, and something that I was willing to accept, because at the end of the day, what would the alternative have been? I can remember, though, it was about a month after she had left back to Thailand, this would have been approaching the end of 2019, when I spoke to my friend, who was married and living in the UK with his Thai wife. Up until then, I hadn't really told him much about what I was doing. I hadn't told him anything about this girl that I'd met other than the very basics, because I knew exactly what he would have said. He would have told me that I'd taken leave of my senses. He would have said to me, "Mate, what are you doing?" But I felt that the fact that I expected to be moving to Thailand within no more than 3 months, at this point I had already got an offer on my house. I felt like I really had to tell him because, I'd kept it a secret from him from such a long time. When I did finally tell him, I could tell that he thought what I was doing was a mistake. I will admit that I held back a few of the truths. I didn't mention that she had an ex-husband. I just said that she was working at the Thai restaurant. He didn't push and say how did she manage to get a visa to be working in a Thai restaurant. He didn't push when he probably could have done. I think he just thought that I couldn't be saved. There's no point ruining a friendship over it, because that's the saddest thing. I would have sided with her every day of the week. I would have ignored all his advice, regardless of what he said, but I could tell that he thought what I was doing was wrong. But then, the way I thought about things, I could say to him, well, you're married to a Thai lady, so why is your marriage okay and mine won't be? And then he could have said, well, we're a similar age, she was a working professional when we met, she had her own things and didn't need to rely on me financially, and he could have probably gone on and on from there with reasons why this was so different. But when I did tell him, I think he kind of resigned himself to the fact that he would be proven right eventually, yet he most likely held out hope that he would be wrong. Then we had the absolutely devastating news about COVID, and I should have gone when I could have. That's the thing. I hate myself so much because I didn't. I should have gone to Thailand when I could. Even though the house sale hadn't gone through, I should have gone. and I could have done something about things and it could have saved me later on, but I chose not to. I didn't think things would close down the way they did. I never for a second thought that was a remote possibility, and I didn't go. I spend way too much time pontificating on that. What would have happened if I would have just gone? Would I have been saved, or would things have played out in a similar way anyway? I know it's pointless even thinking about it, but I don't know, and I never will. The house sale was very close to completion though, but by then it was already too late. The lockdowns had happened, Thailand was closed, apart from under very strict quarantine measures, and then, to add insult to injury, the house sale fell through, and she's in Thailand by this point, and she has got divorced, but I'm in the UK. No money from the house sale is expected, and we can't be with each other, and I can't get any money from anywhere else to bridge the gap. It was devastating, it was absolutely devastating, not knowing when I would see her again. I can remember speaking on video with her and she was crying, and who can tell if they were fake tears or not. Obviously people can fake tears, but I didn't know that they could at the time. But I couldn't. I was heartbroken. I was in real tears and my tears were real, and we were separated from each other, not knowing when we could be together again. I could have gone and been there, like I said, and okay, the house sale would have fallen through, and that would have been an absolute nightmare. But I had enough income to live on and just be okay, just about. But instead, it was a case of her going up to stay in Udon to spend time with her family because she didn't really have anywhere else to go. And I was just living, locked down like everybody else, and it was an awful waiting game. It was an absolutely awful waiting game that we had no choice but to play. To go from, not long ago, feeling like I had the happiest period of my life, to then going to be what was one of the worst points of my life in such a short space of time, it completely destroyed me. Not long ago, the house sale was approaching completion. Everything was looking fantastic. Everything was looking like it was coming together perfectly. And then, COVID. Everything's going wrong. I'm so far away from the love of my life, she's away from me, we're both upset, and neither of us have any clue as to what we should do. The house was still on the market, but it of course wasn't a great time to sell, but eventually another offer came in. At this point, we would have been, I don't even remember exactly when, because I was drinking quite heavily at this point, just to keep my sanity. Not something that I did really much up until then. I went for drinks all the time and I had a couple of beers or whatever else I drank, but I never drank excessively. But it was around this time that I was starting to really hit the bottle hard to cope with the stress and to cope with the separation from her. She seemed to be struggling to cope too, but maybe she was just acting. Most likely she was, but I wasn't, and it was so awful. If I had to guess, it must have been at the start of 2021 or something along those lines when I got another offer on the house. I accepted it, and it took a while to go through, but eventually it did. Probably 5 months after receiving the offer. What a long time that was, the longest 5 months of my life, with the constant worry that it would fall through and I'd have to start all over from scratch. We're in constant contact though, but it's not the same. She's up in Udon, I'm living in rented accommodation after the house sale goes through, and although you could get to Thailand with strict quarantine restrictions, and that was something I was going to do, I needed to arrange a lot of things first, and it was going to be 4 months longer before I could go to Thailand. One thing I haven't said so far, because I didn't know the best way to introduce this, is what I wanted to say, is that somehow, over the course of that awful period of separation, the idea changed from living in Koh Samui, in a rented place, it changed into living in Udon, in her village, after we got married. Because of what happened with COVID, and because of the thoughts of other things like that happening again, it just seemed like it was the most sensible and the most careful option that we could choose. Not because I was very happy to be investing money into anything that wasn't the case at all, but it was just down to the fact that if we didn't do this, what happens if COVID extends for many more years? What happens if things get worse? What happens if everything goes wrong? The idea of having a bolt hole in the countryside, it seemed at the time like it was the most sensible decision. Without this, we would be up in the air about what to do and other things of that nature, and I didn't want to do that. I think that's how she managed to convince me to build a house up in the village, and even though I had warnings, I had so many warnings that I simply ignored, and while I'd been told about situations like this, about how it's not the best idea and how you shouldn't do things like that, my friend had told me many times about it. I'd spoken to guys who had told me things about this. Not the best thing to do. But it was just the feeling of love I had for her, the awful feeling of separation, the feeling like I just wanted to make her happy, the feeling that I didn't want anything to go wrong, the feeling that if I didn't do this, perhaps she'd changed her mind, and it was such an awful situation. But I agreed that we could start building the house when I wasn't even there. I would start sending money, and although it wouldn't be fully complete when I arrived, after the time I arrived and settled in and we got married, it should be ready then. We were going to be investing £100,000 into this house, and that included the land. Well, I should say, I was going to be investing £100,000 because it was all my money, not hers. I was giving her 30,000 baht a month from when she returned to Thailand alone, and she was giving nothing. Now, one thing that I suppose I did make a stupid mistake about was the fact that the land was already owned by her, I believe, but I still paid for that as well. Most likely, she just pocketed the money. I don't know why I did that, but I did. By the time I was actually on the way to Thailand, I'd already sent £60,000 for the land and the start of the construction. And you have to understand, this wasn't a blatant out-and-out scam, because of course I'm seeing the video of the house going up. I'm seeing everything. We're talking every single day, multiple times. It's not like I send the money and she ghosts me. That's not happening. So yeah, about £60,000 was sent, and arriving in Thailand, I went through everything you need to go through to get in. All worth it though, I thought. But the feeling of finally touching down in Thailand, after all that time, that was just when it felt like the best feeling in the world. It was like this feeling of peace and tranquility, this feeling of happiness and comfort all in one, all mixed together, and it was such a good time, but also, it was a nervous time, given what was going on in the world, given that I wasn't in my own country, and given the fact I was going to be going up to see a house that I'd built in an area I'd never been to before. I mean, it wasn't built yet, but it was well underway. I actually flew up to Udon when I was able to. When I actually saw her waiting for me there at the airport, that was just the happiest moment of my life. And if I'd have known that from there, everything was just going to go downhill so rapidly and so considerably, I don't know what I would have done. Would I have still kept going, or would I have thrown in the towel and accepted a loss? That's something I will never know. I get it, that it's very hard to accept a loss, and that's why many guys keep going until there's nothing left. But we met at the airport and we went to a hotel in Udon. Everything is great. There's no indication that she's changed her mind, no indication that she's got anything going on that she shouldn't have going on. And I was just happy again. I believe that was the first time I felt happy ever since she left to get divorced. And yes, I saw the divorce certificate. It had been translated to English. She'd sent that to me, so it wasn't like I was blindly doing things. You have to understand that I wasn't blindly throwing money at things, blindly being stupid. That wasn't the case at all. She'd actually, literally sent me the divorce certificate. She sent me the bills for the things we paid for with the house we were building. I wasn't blindly sending money without receiving any evidence. So what was I meant to think? We spent the first day in the hotel, waking up the following morning, and I can't wait to go and see the progress on the house. And the first thing she said was, well, we need to get married first. I didn't really think much about that. Although I was thinking, what do you mean we need to get married first? We're literally building a house. Surely your family knows I'm building it. But I don't know if she actually told them anything or not, and where she got the money from. And she said, yeah, don't worry about it. We'll tell the family, but we'll need to do it properly. I didn't really mind about that, whatever properly was, but I did ask her what she meant. And she said, well, first we need to finish the house, and once the house is finished, then we can go and get married. And that was the first time I actually thought, no, that's a bit ridiculous, and I had to tell her. And I think she actually thought to herself, yes, it really was ridiculous, I can't do that. Then she said she didn't mean it that way at all. What she meant was, we need to finish the house before we can get married, but we can go and have an introduction to the family soon. Then I said, soon, do you mean today? And she said yes. So she kind of understood that what she said was so insane and so unbelievable, even for a guy as madly in love with her as I was, it was something that was a bit too far, and she understood that perhaps, before I cottoned on to the fact that she was trying to play me, she better play ball. So that very day, we actually went to meet the family. I was introduced. Nobody spoke any English. Nobody said anything. But she did appear to be a little bit on edge. And I just took that as the fact that, well, we weren't married. It was cultural. But we would be married soon, and everything would be talked about to make that a possibility. We'd already talked at length about what the marriage would entail. 250,000 baht to the family, and we'd all be good. The house was coming on great, though. It really was. It still needed about £40,000 putting into it, and that was what was going to happen next. But I did say that I wanted to get married first, believing somehow that that would give me some kind of security or some kind of peace of mind, and she convinced me that we could do the village ceremony, and after the village ceremony, we can get married properly down in Pattaya when we went to visit there next. That was just how it kind of continued. Staying in the hotel in Udon together, the rest of the money goes into the house, it looks great. I mean, it was a sight of perfection. The house was my dream house. Then we went to buy a car. Unfortunately, I was very naive when it came to buying a car, as I bought it in her name. That was £30,000 for the car. It was a huge pickup that she said we needed, and that went into her name. We were village married, and from there, although I talked briefly about getting married on paper and getting it arranged that way, it just never happened. I never continued to push, and we start living in the house, and months are going by, and I believe everything's fine. I really believe everything's fine. I'm giving her an allowance of about 30,000 baht every month, and that was the income I was getting in, so I was eating into my savings, but given my age, I thought it's more than enough to last. Everything should be fine, and I was really happy. It was that feeling of happiness that perhaps lulled me into a false sense of security. I'm not really sure what it actually was, but I really was in my element, and I thought things would remain that way for the rest of my life. That went on for about 6 months, and actually, this was the point when things were finally opening up okay in Thailand, and my friend, who was married to his wife, was coming to Thailand for a visit. His favourite place was up north in a place called Chiang Rai, and he asked me to go up and visit him, and I asked my wife to go with me, but she said she didn't want to. She said she had things to sort out around the area, but I didn't mind. I would go by myself. It was great catching up with him. I told him about what I was doing, and I could tell he was very hesitant, and very like, you're about to be in for a world of hurt soon here. But he didn't say much. He didn't want to rub anything in, and I spent a week with him, speaking to my wife all the time, and there's no problems or concerns there. And I believe everything was going exactly like we'd want everything to go, it really was. But I would say it was after I returned from seeing my friend when everything really started to go downhill. I was still drinking heavily. I hadn't managed to kick that habit since COVID, which was something I was very embarrassed about because I never really was an alcoholic. But at this point, there was no big issue with my wife. But one day, I was just walking around the village, which I did many times, and it was amazing how many houses you saw that were built by foreigners. I would ask my wife who built this house, and she would say he's no longer there anymore. This guy's no longer there anymore. But the way she always worded it, it wasn't anything to do with the fact that the guy had been scammed. It was all to do with, well, this guy went to Pattaya and messed around in the bars, so his wife left him. This guy died. This guy was a bad man. This guy was a really bad man kind of thing. She never said it was the girl's fault. I always thought it was amazing, though, that you'd see all these huge houses everywhere, all built by foreigners. And there were a few guys living there. I'm not trying to paint all the Thai girls that work in places like that with the same brush, definitely not, because they're not all the same. There are guys successfully living out in the countryside. Would they be there if money wasn't involved? I believe in some instances, yes, there would be, I really do. But that's a 1 in 1,000 kind of thing, not even a 1 in 10 or a 1 in 100, a 1 in 1,000. I know there will likely be some people that disagree with me on that, saying they're happy in the village. Well, if you're saying that, I bet you have money in place so as not to ruin the illusion. But anyway, I'm walking around the village and I see a guy. And to start with, I just didn't recognize him, but I did recognize him, if that makes sense. Who was this guy? I'm sure I'd seen him before, but I couldn't point to exactly where I'd seen him. I just thought and I thought and I thought. When he saw me, he kind of turned around and walked away. Not like he was trying to hide or anything, but he just turned and walked. And I'm thinking, and from there, I went to get my plate of pag pao at the local shop, large beer, which are basically the same price as 7-Eleven, plus about 2 baht. Don't know how they can even keep the thing refrigerated and pay the electric bill for a 2 baht profit, but who cares? I'm just thinking to myself all the time about who that guy was, but I can't think or work it out. I went to bed that night, my wife's being normal, I believe everything's fine. I mean, she would be. She's getting a lot of money out of me, and I'm at this point £150,000 into Thailand. Enough money to live out my days in this beautiful place, but this is in the back of my mind. Who was that guy? Then I'm thinking back to all the times that I could have met someone, and I just can't point my finger to it. I went for a walk around the village again, multiple times over the next few weeks, but I never saw him again, not once. And then, one night, I woke up, kind of like out of this awful nightmare, and I just thought, is that the same guy that I saw down in Koh Samui? And then I'm thinking, hang on, I'm sure this could have been the guy, and I've seen him before. Maybe he was on the bus from Udon to Bangkok. Surely that was the same guy that was on the plane from Bangkok to Koh Samui. It might have been the same guy. I'm trying to picture all this and paint everything together, and that was like one of those eureka moments, but the exact opposite of that. Kind of like a nightmare scenario where, oh, it is the same guy. And then it was me walking around the village trying to find him, and when I saw him again, I was able to confirm that it was indeed the same guy. It definitely was. He had been on Koh Samui. She was speaking to him. She was very friendly with him. The guy who shook my hand, and yeah, it must have been the same guy. That's why I had all those bad feelings before. Then I confronted my wife. This was after another few weeks had gone by, just to make sure I was dead certain, and of course, she would deny it. She denied it very well. Basically said, absolutely not, don't be stupid. But I could tell there was something wrong, but she didn't want to say anything. She didn't want to admit to anything. Then it was a question of, well, if this is her Thai husband, one of the things I'd been warned about, which is the saddest thing, I had been warned, I had been told, had been made aware of everything. I'd been told, I still didn't pay any attention though. But it was a question of having to catch the whole thing in the act. I needed to catch her. And of course now she's been more careful. I never looked at her phone because that would have been too obvious. And for me, it started to be a very bad time. We went away to Pattaya together, pretending everything's normal. She's normal with me. Of course, she doesn't know that I'm 100% certain as to what's happening, but I'm being as normal as I can. I mean, I was 100% sure, or 99% anyway, but I didn't want to admit that it had happened until I actually found out and saw it with my own eyes. It was about 3 months after returning from going to Pattaya. That was when I actually found out the 100% truth. I just went somewhere, decided to come back a bit earlier than normal, and it was as plain as day. It was obvious what was going on, and then all of a sudden, I'm in a very, very bad situation. But what can you do? What can you do when that happens? You can't do anything apart from admit that you've been scammed and you've been ripped off, and I'd lost about £165,000. Luckily, I didn't lose everything, but I was close to it. When I found out we had a huge argument, she just said no problem. And you know how they say problem in Thailand? They don't use R's and it's problem, not problem, and it's crazy to think about. She'd managed to do that so effortlessly. It was effortless on her part to get all that money out of me, because I was in love with her. We had a village ceremony, we did everything. But I was just a tolerated idiot, and I would have been tolerated until all the money ran out. If all the money ran out, then what would have happened then? I'd have had to have gone anyway, wouldn't I? So that was my Thailand. Well, I wouldn't even call it a misadventure, because it wasn't even an adventure to start with. It was just meant to be finding someone to settle down with and live out my days in retirement and peace. But it didn't work. She's got a nice house, she's got a nice car, probably got some money still, although probably not. She may have spent through all that money. But she had it all out of me, but I don't care. I mean, I do care, I've lost a lot, but what can I do? The fact that you see all those houses around there, the fact that when you're pointing them out, it's bad man here and this bad man there, this man dead, this man messing around with lady, this man, it's all a lie. As I said, I don't want to paint all the people with the same brush because they're not all like that. My friend is with his wife still, he's happy, he's good, and he did console me, and he didn't rub salt in the wounds. He didn't say, I told you so. He didn't say anything. He just said, I'm sorry, mate, and well, that's where I am today. I just thank God that I have enough money to buy another place to live in. My area is reasonably expensive, but you can buy a one-bedroom flat, so at least I've got a place to live that I own. At least I've got that, and at least I've got my income, which isn't a lot, and at least I'm doing a bit of work. I'll get my old age pension in a few years' time, and at least I'll sort of be okay. But it can be crazy what the mind can do and what so-called love can do. That was me. I wouldn't want it to happen to anybody else because it's not worth it. What an awful time that was. I've been through hell, and I've been through hell twice, and I'll go through hell again, in my nightmares, in my dreams forever, and I'll never get over it. But at least I'll know that by telling this story, although there are going to be lots of people who will ridicule me and tell me that I'm stupid, I get that and I deserve it. I was stupid. Please feel free to do that because I do deserve it. But if it helps even one guy to not make the same mistake, then that ridicule will be worthwhile. Don't get married in Thailand. Don't get married to a Thai girl unless they're on the same financial standing as you, from the same kind of background as you, and it's a real thing. Otherwise, it's all a lie, and it will always be a lie. Even if you die and you're still with them, it will still be a lie, because the only reason they'll be with you is because you had enough money to see you out for the rest of your life. All I can say is, be careful, and that's all I'm gonna say.